Welcome to the video. Here's what I need you to do. Smash the like button, subscribe to the page, and check out the podcast below in the description.
This video is sponsored by Indeed.com/ham, where right now you can get a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/ham. But Trey Lance and the 49ers beat the Texans. Let's talk about Trey's day. What did we think?
You got to give him credit because it was a little, I don't think people were nervous, but it looked a little rocky early. But as the game went on, made some big plays, threw a couple touchdowns. I mean, one was a layup, but the touchdown to Debo was sweet. He definitely settled in. Even, we can talk about the opponent all we want, but he got better as the game went on. And to me, you won the game. I mean, for a split second in the second half, it was 7-3. They were losing, but I guess before they had the touchdown drive, where you just started thinking, could they lose this game? It wasn't, you don't really think that in the first half, but in the second half, it's 7-3. They're not doing much on offense. You just go, could they lose this game? And then they score, and they go up, 10-7, and then you just get a little breathing room because you're playing the Texans, and they take care of business. But I think the end of the half drive was pretty big for them, made some plays. Which they got a little lucky, right? Because they get the ball to end the half, but then the Texans call timeouts, then they punt it back, and then they start using their timeouts, and then they get the ball back. I mean, it was a pretty just Texans Kyle weird at the end of first half fucking situation.
Yeah, look, I said this after the end of the half. It's good, I think, for a young player in Trey's position to have a few things to get lucky. And he got lucky on that drive. The ball went through the defender's hands, hits Ayuk. There's 7 seconds left. There's not enough time, you think, for another play. It goes through the DB or linebacker, whoever's hands it went through, goes to Ayuk. He steps out of bounds. They kick the field goal. That and the Marcel Harris fumble play, which I am pro forward progress. I did not think that one deserved to be blown dead because of forward progress. And then they get a pass interference as Gene Steratore is trying to explain the forward progress. So they caught some breaks there. But I thought what was important, I'm with you, was the end of that first half. It took some time for him to settle down. But I do think, one thing I was thinking about watching the game was he's only made one start. He's played another half. And there is an expiration. If you, are trying to run a 7-minute mile, let's say, and you spend a month practicing to run a 7-minute mile, and then you stop for 3 months, you don't just start back up where you left off. Trey Lance started, and then he didn't get to start again after that. So I thought in the first couple of drives, it looked like his first start all over again. He looked uneasy as a runner. I didn't think he was really comfortable. The one thing he consistently does is keep his eyes downfield when he breaks the pocket, but he was breaking the pocket early. And you could tell by what Adam Archuleta was saying, probably some of the conversation he had with Kyle Shanahan this week was, Jimmy gets rid of the ball very quickly, and Trey was not getting rid of the ball very quickly. But it did feel like the drive at the end of the half just settled him down, and then he looked a lot more comfortable in the second half. And he made some great plays. He really made some great plays. If I had told you before the game that you'd get 16 of 23 for 249 yards, 2 touchdowns, passing, 1 interception, and I thought he had a rushing touchdown.
No, they called.
Oh, they took it back. That's right. Yeah, on Ayuk. But if I told you those were the numbers, 70% for 249, that's 10. That's almost 11 yards per attempt.
How many yards you rush for?
31. 4 yards a carry. Okay, 8 carries for 31 yards. I think I predicted a little bit bigger from a completion to attempts standpoint, but I think I would have taken that before the game if you had told me those were his numbers.
Yeah, I remember a Raider coach told me this about Derek Carr's first couple years. And he was like, the one thing he really struggles with is early in games, he's so amped up. And you've heard Peyton and just the elite quarterbacks talk about, there's a balance, right? When you watch the scrum in the NFL or even college football, when the guy brings them up before they go into the locker room to then immediately come out for the game, every player is fired the fuck up, right? Linebackers, O-line, everyone's hit. It's like gladiators. But the quarterback, and probably the kickers too, you can't really be like that. But it's understandable for young players to kind of battle that. And to me, he just looked first. His home game Place is rocking. He's getting his second start of the season. He just looked amped and fired up. And I think that's kind of understandable. And he definitely just, part of settling a guy down is getting a completion, getting a first down, making some plays. And you can still see he's pretty tentative when he runs. Yeah. And he's not that fast relative to NFL players, partly because he's, probably a 4.65 guy, his play speed. And most guys in the NFL now, I mean, we have defensive linemen running 4.5. Every linebacker's running 4.4, 4.5. All the slot corners and the safeties are all running 4.4, 4.5. Like, the speed on defense has never been faster. Because a couple times, I think just the average, if you're not like some NFL scout or whatever, you might think he's moving a little slow. I think it's really more their speed, like, because he's known as an athletic guy, and he is athletic, but he is not a burner when he runs. To me, his running is going to be, he's going to use that as like a second, like a change-up pitch. Like his pitch, and as you saw, is like when they hit the big Debo play, is going to be throwing the ball. He made a couple nice throws to that Ayuk play that kind of got him going. Was that on the drive before half? They moved across the hit him on the slant.
Yep, 42 yards.
Then late in the game when he hit the one-handed catch to Kittle, like he's going to be an explosive passer. He's not going to be some guy that breaks like rushing records in the NFL. And it's understandable, myself included. You kind of got to get to know the player because it's not like we learned about him as he played in college, right? Like when C.J. Stroud gets to the NFL, you're going to have a pretty good idea. C.J. Stroud's a passing quarterback, right? He's a smooth passer. Bryce Young's going to be more like a Russell Wilson because we had to experience these guys. Like there's no experience. And then even when you watch North Dakota State, I think you struggle with, how much of this is relatable besides, yeah, he can go under center. But just in terms of like, he was running by guys and juking guys out. Like that's not really going to be his cup of tea here, right? There was one play when he got stuffed where it's just, Reed, that fucking guy's good. I mean, he's probably one of the better Stanford prospects of the last decade on defense. And he hawked him like that. And sometimes you learn right away, like, you just have to utilize your play speed and what you can and can't do. And there is and we've talked about this nonstop. There's a learning process as a player, whatever position you play, but definitely the quarterback position, and definitely the quarterback position when you are an athlete, right? I think that's a huge thing of like learning the balance. And a lot of guys, and we've made fun of a lot of guys over the year, the Johnny Manziels, the players who are athletes, but bro, you're not the same athlete you were, like Ian Book the other night. Yeah. Trey's going to have to learn, like, and he did as the game went on. He looked to throw the ball. And when he was rolling, I saw you tweet, he did a good job keeping his eyes down the field. Like that is going to be his greatest strength, keeping plays alive behind the line of scrimmage and hitting your fucking sweet offensive weapons. Yeah. Right? Not trying to run. You're not going to bust off. You're not Kyler. You're not going to bust out a 30-yard run unless everyone has disappeared or looking the other way, right? Like you're not going to juke guys.
No, but he might. Yeah, he might break off the run words. He might. See, I think there's still. I think he'll be better as a runner as time goes on. I still think he's just like you said.
I'm saying that is his secondary pitch. 100% his secondary pitch.
Maybe his third pitch, right? His first pitch might be his arm strength, period, or just ultimately his first pitch might be that they think can be a really good pocket quarterback. His second pitch is get out of the pocket and make throws. His third pitch is just how he stresses you in the designed run game. And then the fourth pitch is like him scrambling with the football downfield.
And let me say this, and I saw this in the chat, and the chat's right. He did this a couple times in the game. Having a guy that just, if something kind of breaks down and just can, one time he stepped right out of bounds and he was like an inch short, but they don't have that with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like that hasn't even been an element of their game, right? It literally did not exist. So having a guy that, I'm not even nitpicking. His speed is his speed, but he has speed that they have never had with their starting quarterback. So that is a nice little element, a guy being able to pick up yards. He did that definitely more in the Arizona game, where maybe it was more he knew less of the offense, he would just take off. But he did it a couple times a day, and it's just nice to just get some extra yards that aren't there, right? So it's a positive thing. I'm not diminishing his ability to run at all.
No, I know you're not. I just I did think this as the game wore on. I don't know how let's say he'd been starting the last 10 games. I don't know what he would have done on the first two series, but I think he would have looked more comfortable. And I think I was hoping that would be the conclusion I'd reach by the time the game ended, and it was. By the time the game ended, I looked back at those first few series, and thought that he just looked like he was trying to catch up, right? He hadn't played in a long time in an NFL game. He hasn't played a lot of football. And I think I feel a lot better about the way the game started with hindsight. And, I was hopeful at the end of the half when they had 2 minutes and a couple of timeouts that a 2-minute offense might be the thing that forces him, kind of shakes him out of it. Ultimately, they ran 3 plays and, had to punt. And like you said, they got the ball back again and they called. But did you notice, like, they were calling timeouts when the Texans had the ball? Like, Kyle wanted the ball back one more time and they got 3 points out of it. But, sometimes I think for guys,
maybe you watched the Rose Bowl yesterday and realized, I don't want to just not use my timeouts.
maybe. I know that was, but you mean Jamar Chase, Jackson Smith and Jigba? But I think with hindsight, like, and this goes back to something we talked about during the week, how much I think Kyle's trying to find his way with Trey a little bit too, right? Kyle's rhythm is going to be different because he hasn't called the game for this guy, really. I mean, he's called one, but he hasn't totally found his groove. I mean, it's, again, I thought George Kittle would get more involved just because George wasn't that involved last week, and that didn't really happen. Kittle had that early kind of end around and then the one-handed catch, and those were his only 2 touches of the game. But I think there is a big feeling out process, and I look back. Well, we can talk about development separately.
But I'd say this with the Kittle thing: when you only have 23 attempts, especially a young quarterback, I think right away, if you just said, "Hey, let's just pick an even number, 25," you would probably say 35% at minimum are just going to go dump off passes. Right. And that's just the nature of, like, hell, you could watch if Brady or Rodgers throws the ball 40 times, 8 to 10 of them are going to be the check down, right? Most passes are, you only run so many go routes, even though it feels like when the teams playing the Niners should run them every play. I don't understand why why are you running the ball? Like, it does not make sense. As a guy, as
like, just pick any corner, any of them.
Yeah, like every single 49er fan could advance scout this team. It's like, guys, just run deep. What did Tom Hanks say? Throw deep, baby. Just do that on the left or the right side. So I just think
Tom was quoting Kenny Stabler.
He was. Throw deep, baby. And I thought he was aggressive down the field, and some of them are called shots, right? I mean, the Debo one was clearly a called shot. I know they kind of, on his pick, they called it out on the broadcast. And part of that is, like, I think Kroenke saying, like, that is not going to be the backside read. Like, that's not even where
how
he's
open
looking
Debo
in that
was.
spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's going there. And that's just, he underthrew it a little bit. But let's face it, like, we've seen Jimmy miss that pass. Now, it's not a great pass. It's a killer anytime you turn the ball over. But, yeah, I mean, I thought for the most part, like, he just got much more decisive like, what freaked me out early in the game is, like, he's not very decisive. And then I got to take a step back. He hasn't played that much. You got to let it breathe. That's why I wasn't going to tweet in the first half and just let the thing fucking just take its course. And it did. It took its course as the game. Now, part of it is the opponent, right? It might have been hard, not in a good rhythm if he's playing a good team, but that you just can play who you're playing.
Yeah, when you play 17, but that's the thing, like, when you get to play a whole season, you play some really good teams, you get to play some bad teams, you get to have some good games. I think it's critical ultimately for Trey. Like, well, again, I'll save this for our next conversation. Here's the thing I'll say about this game. At halftime, when it felt like it was pretty uneven, like it wasn't very good from him until that last drive, I looked down, he's 10 of 13 for 105 yards with the interception. I think in some ways it probably felt a little worse. And again, ending the first half on a high note really helped him. But yeah, I think in some ways he's more comfortable throwing the football than he is on some of these run plays. Part
of the stat though, he got, I think, 45 yards on the IU catch.
I'm talking more about the 10 of 13, but you're right. The yardage was, I mean, they're just trying to play it safe. How about the second fourth down, the second 4th and 1? I actually thought when they punted later in the game on 4th down, they should have gone for it. The 4th and 1 play where they line up I formation. Was that, I don't know if it wasn't in the red zone. Was it in the red zone? Line up I formation, turn around, play action, rolls to his left. He's got Kittle in the flat. Then he's got Debo behind him. Then he's got Ayuk behind him.
They took away all 3 of them, kind of. They were all covered.
I thought early the Kittle throw was there, but it's hard. That angle is tough. He's going to have to catch it and then turn up field. It was going to be a difficult play. he quickly decided he was just going down the field. And then Debo and Ayuk ended up in some of the same area, and it wasn't great. But I appreciated on fourth that he was not looking for the check down, which in that spot, maybe it was Kittle. I don't know if Kittle was the first option or not. They took a shot, is what it turned out to be. However it was designed, I don't know. But while I didn't love it, I appreciated, you know, it was like on one hand, I hated it. On the other hand, I appreciated it.
If you're going to do half the field on a rollout, right, on a 4th and 1 or 4th and whatever, you do just naturally have to have guys behind him, right? You can't have guys on the other side because he can't look over there. So I understood why they have the guys, but I give the Texans credit on that. They took the play away. Like, that play was fucked.
I guess my point is on 4th and 1, there was like, I know they had tried the pitch play on the previous 4th down and it hadn't worked. But on 4th and 1, I don't think you have to do anything too crazy. Maybe they thought they'd get a touchdown on that play. I just appreciated the aggressiveness. Now, I think it's also aggressiveness that against a better football team might bite you, right? Not taking the higher percentage, I don't know, the quarterback sneak. Although him in short yardage has not been, I don't know what they
didn't really, I guess they had one, like,
they had an early
kind of quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like a legit quarterback power today. I don't think they had a quarterback power off the tackles. They had one kind of up the gut where it might have just been a quarterback draw. But remember, in the first game, quarterback power and quarterback true runs, I have to go rewatch the game, but felt like I mean, they didn't do it today. Now, maybe it's just holding it back. Maybe it's, you know, they got to use them again. You know, in better teams, you're going to need to utilize that. But it definitely felt more of a real type, like he was running real plays. That it was a little different, I thought, than his first start, which is understandable. He knows more of the offense, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I went back and watched that first game last time, he threw the ball down the field quite a bit in that first.
Yeah, but they were down. Like, I mean, part of it was just, like, today felt like the 49ers, like he was just running the 49ers offense, utilizing him on a lot of Jimmy plays, like not just Trey gadget plays, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, eight rushing attempts, and not all of those were designed, obviously. It's fantastic. Like, I don't want more than that for him.
No, because he's
like, if you
my point, he's not a dynamic runner. You know, he's not Kyler or Lamar. Because when I say dynamic runner, there are only a couple dynamic runners. Like, there are a lot of, like, Josh Allen is a more dynamic runner than this guy, right? He's faster. He's more elusive. This guy, Trey's not that elusive in space relative to, like, NFL linebackers and NFL safeties. He's not going to juke those guys out.
No, and I think the part of his game that I'll be interested to see in his run game, if it comes, is it's not a big contact right now brings him down for the most part when he's in space. Because I think he's a little unsure if he should try and accelerate or if he should try and make a guy miss or if he should try and run a guy over. And sometimes he ends up doing none of those things, and there's no yak out of it.
And my take would be just avoid those at all. Like, I don't want you to even test yourself lowering your shoulder. Like,
totally.
You know, Cam Newton came into this league. That was going to be a huge part of his game. Like, to me, for this guy to be successful, he has to be a thrower.
Yeah, but I guess ultimately, if he tries to juke or decides to accelerate, he's not going to take as many square shots as he does when he kind of breaks down and isn't sure what to do. I think that's where you take shots, is where you, like, put your arm out to try and, like, brace the defender, and you kind of go down. And but I think that's a small part of what we're talking about here. I thought he throws the ball hard. He did it again today, but he had touch throws. That was the other thing, right? Like, what did you think of that part of his game in terms of his fastball, but the ability to use off-speed kind of throws? I thought he threw with some touch.
Thought it was a lot better today. A lot better today than the first time. And it's just being more sure with your arm. There was a play where he kind of lobbed it a little bit to Jennings, and Jennings had to make a good catch, you know, kind of below his feet.
Yeah.
But I just think you got, like, not everything has to be 100-mile-an-hour fastball. But when he had to let it rip, the Debo play back across the middle, he did. The Ayuk slant, he did. The Kittle play, he did. But then he also just had basic
the ball he
wheel
threw to
route or whatever.
Ayuk in the end zone.
Yeah.
The one I couldn't bring it in, but I mean, it was.
But even just like the basic, I know it's a layup throw, but we've seen young guys fuck it up. The first touchdown pass to Elijah Mitchell, just the roll out and just dump it. Didn't throw it. You know, there was once a running quarterback for the 49ers not that long ago that that was not something his cup of tea, right? And it's understandable because you see it in baseball a lot of time. A lot of guys don't know how to throw off-speed pitches because his best attribute is this kind of cannon arm. He could make throws. Like, his arm power is just much, obviously greater than the other guy. It's pretty eye-opening. Even Davis Mills, who's, pretty solid young player, he's got a much stronger arm than Davis Mills. Like, Davis Mills, his arm, I'd say, like, is a Cousin-ish, type.
See, I think it's a little better than Cousins' arm.
Cousins has a good arm now, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. This is a good point. Let's not forget this detail to go back to. Let me see where this comment went here. Who said this? Blah, blah, blah. I can't find it. Somebody said he only got one ball batted down at the line of scrimmage.
That was nice.
Right. That was a big talking point.
Yes, it was.
Previously. So, what did you think of his throwing motion? We spent a lot of time talking about that after his last start.
I think one of the reasons it really stood out against the Cardinals was because the balls were getting batted down, and it was like a coaching point that the motion was delayed. I didn't even think about it today. It wasn't something that really crossed my mind or thought that it was. I thought more early on when I thought he was struggling, and this will be something big picture that he's going to have to improve on, is just being decisive with your reads. And even Archuleta kept mentioning it. Like, the other guy's strength is getting rid of the football fast. Like, Jimmy is 1-2, boom. Now, we don't always know where it's going. It flies. Sometimes he's like, I don't think he knows what to do. And then or knows where he wants to go with the ball. Then he gets frenetic in the pocket. To me, that was a much bigger issue than I didn't notice his arm release today.
Yeah, I didn't notice as much either in this game. And maybe it was directly related to the batted passes. I think also it was related to the fact that there weren't a lot of situations where it felt like, even though there were times where he didn't throw right away, right? He's holding the ball in the pocket or getting out of the pocket. It didn't feel like when the ball arrived at the receiver, it was late, right? There weren't a lot of situations. He had one pass kind of behind maybe Sherfield or Debo coming across from the screen, coming from the bottom of the screen to the top. They were going right to left. He had one pass that was kind of behind, and then he had the ball that Debo dropped. But I think for the most part, once he decided to throw, the ball was in a catchable place, and it wasn't late. Like, there wasn't all of a sudden a defender there. And part of that might be like Arizona just has better playmakers on defense than the Texans are solid, not as a team overall, but they can give you a little bit of battle for 2 or 3 quarters for the most part. Solid.
JJ, at the time was there. An underrated part of his game was he always batted passes. Like, that's maybe what he was really good at. I'd have to look back on how many balls he batted that individual game. He definitely had 1 or 2. There was a play today, like with Sherfield going over the middle, and the linebacker made a great play, kind of leaped up, got his hand on it. Which,
Kirksey?
Yeah, I can't put that. Like, that's just a great play by the defender. What I've been interested, though, on is getting a guy across the middle, probably, what would you say, 20, 25-yard throw, given where he was standing, where Sherfield was. Like, where, because he was wide open. Even Archuleta's like, oh, God, he had him. Where, is that ball hitting him in stride? Is that ball a little behind him? Is it hitting him in front? I don't know. Like, that would have been, he didn't really have that many of those throws. Because by the time, the one he hit Debo had some space. It clearly beat his guy. He didn't have to stop. It was a nice throw. But, like, on the one where he hitting a true crosser, who's a little much closer than Debo was, I wish we just would have got to see the result of that ball placement.
Right. I did think go ahead.
You just couldn't tell. You didn't know where. It was impossible to tell.
I thought the other thing that stood out was you just had, not that Garoppolo, doesn't throw the ball down the field, but I felt like there were more throws down the field with authority in this game. Trey he lets it fly. Like, when he throws it downfield, it is in the category of he lets it fly. And
definitely took the one shot in the end zone
took another shot kind of into double coverage, over the middle that got broken up. But
one thing watching the Texans last week against the Chargers,
even his interception was downfield, John.
Yeah. But see, to me, that's a Niner play. Like, that's a Kyle Shanahan, developed play. They don't run, and just watching the Texans game last week and watch the Texans game this week. Now, Cooks, who, if that guy's going to be a free agent, like, he's good enough, like, someone's going to give him some money. He's kind of like resurrecting his career. Like, I think he looks pretty good. Is like the Texans just run some go routes, right? They did it last week. They did it again this week. Wouldn't you say for the most part, now part of this is Jimmy's been the quarterback for several years. The Niners, like in their repertoire, is not just going deep and throwing it. They don't really do it that often. Just one-on-one coverage, like you watched the Bengal game today. They fucking throw deep all the time to Chase. Just one-on-one, throw it. That's not really the Niners' game plan on the outside of the numbers. And so I don't know if Kyle's not used to calling those plays, but that would be something, if I was him, I would institute with Trey Lance. Just some go routes with either 11 or 19. Just run some go routes. Or even like if you can get one-on-one situation. Now, this guy's probably in the slot more than he's truly on the outside, but even like a Jennings back shoulder throw, right? That's, like a 12-yard, 18-yard, somewhere in that range, like a comeback, and he could even be on the other hash or maybe even on the same hash, but they push the ball outside. Like, that's just not really the Niners offense unless it's a design play by the head coach.
Yeah, we're setting everything up to take this shot.
Because don't you think that play that he threw the pick was clearly a design to get him leaked out down the corner, right? They tried to do that specifically. And that's where, when he threw that pick, I blame, like when Jimmy throws picks like that, and I always say, like, it worked in practice, you get the look you want, and a good quarterback, like, they eat the ball. Even if you don't see the wide open guy, take a sack, right? Anything's better than the pick. I have a harder time, guy making a second start, like, hey, you hit this guy no matter what. It worked in practice. He just pulls the trigger. Not a great throw. But, like, the decision, I mean, I bet they had been hammering that all week, right? We're going to get this. We're going to get this. We're going to get this. He's fucking 21. He's like, we're going to get this. And it just wasn't. And this is what goes back to what you were saying about the touch. I think he's really trying to balance on not everything has to be the rope. I'm sure they hammered that home from the first game, right? Work on some of this. I bet they've been working on it in practice. I bet the guys on defense are pushing it. And I think there he tried to make a perfect throw. And you can see, even you're playing a shitty team like the Texans, these guys are still pretty good athletes, man. You're watching. There were a couple plays early on when he got tackled in space. I bet he realized, like, God, this is what a 4-12 NFL team looks like? Holy shit.
Right. You don't, by and large, you don't get to sleepwalk on anybody. Hell, the Bucs didn't get to sleepwalk on the Jets.